This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Brian Peña. I always join the Vito podcast, the best podcast in the United States.
And Doc, as you know, on this beautiful, almost summer afternoon on a Tuesday, we are partners with The Athletic. And The Athletic is premium coverage for passionate Detroit sports fans. And listeners of this very episode of Tigers Talk can get 20% off the first year of an annual subscription to The Athletic by visiting today, theathletic.com/DSP. And welcome to the latest, the freshest edition of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. I am your host, Vito Geronimo Chirco, alongside my usual sidekick and broadcast partner in fun. That is Doc from Doc and Jock, John Charles Macaroon. John, how are you doing, man?
Vito, what's happening, man? Thank you so much for bringing the nice weather on this day of recording. Oh, man, our first podcast back from the Memorial Day break. Man, it was nice to kind of sit back, have some beers, sit outside. A couple days I got to take the computer outside, just kind of sit back, watch the Tigers, and they did well. All credit to Blaine Hardy, Matt Boyd, the left-handers kind of keeping it down, doing their thing, helping the Detroit Tigers, helping the cause. Two lefties that are crafty, and it was nice to see. Blaine Hardy obviously was a guy that was a former reliever, and on Sunday, he came in and handled his business, helped the Detroit Tigers win a series versus the White Sox. And then you go, and everyone had a little bit of concern regarding Matt Boyd and maybe his oblique strain, a little bit of an issue that popped up. But boom, he comes back right away versus the vaunted Angels. And you're going to have an opportunity to get down to Copa after this recording to check out the Angels and the Detroit Tigers, check out Michael Fulmer. And so to see those two guys, it's been nice. And I specifically want to start with Matt Boyd. I feel like he's done a great job, a guy that's kind of, been a guy that has started off a little bit slowly in Detroit, but ever so slowly last year when he almost had the no-hitter, and then he's kind of slowly progressed, getting better. Scouts are looking at him going, you know what? He seems now to have embraced the veteran role. He understands kind of the art of pitching and has been not utilizing that fastball as much, and he's been crafty, and it's been nice to see his recent outings in that he shut down some teams that have had some significant offense. Matt Boyd's been doing a good job.
He's been the best Tiger starting pitcher of late. And over a stretch of 3 to 5 starts now, it has been Matt Boyd, not the right-hander Michael Fulmer, going tonight, Tuesday night of this recording, and a game that I will be at, as you said, already. And it must be the reason why Michael Fulmer, the right-handed ace of the Tigers pitching staff, is on the mound, because they know that I'm coming. So they better, put on a good showing for me against the Halos, who are a mighty good team in the American League West, a team that the Tigers, you'd have to believe, lose the series against, but already won Game 1 Monday, Memorial Day, matinee at Comerica Park, Copa, as you said. And it was a beautiful day, Monday for baseball on Memorial Day. Beautiful night for me going to the game Tuesday night. The night of this recording, once again, should be a great event, ball game to take in as long as they don't get blown out. Shohei Ohtani didn't bat in Game 1. His start was pushed back from Sunday. Will he pitch in this series? Now, I'm not sure if he's slated now to start in this series, 4-game set at Copa against the Tigers. But if so, well, we get to see him, duel against the Tigers too, and that's a great thing. It brings a lot of intrigue with it, and Mike Trout brings a lot of intrigue with himself. On pace for a career season, career high for WAR in a single season, and this guy's already won 2 American League Most Valuable Player awards. And yeah, Boyd is the ace right now. Fulmer, what is he, number 3? Would you slot him at number 3 because Blaine Hardy's number 2? Look at it. Come on, the lefties. Boyd and Hardy, those are the 2 aces of the pitching staff. Forget about Michael Fulmer. Trade him away. Get some prospects. We can build around Matt Boyd and Blaine Hardy for the future now, Doc. Not really.
No, come on. Let's also look at the fact that, hey, at least the Detroit Tigers, when they play at home, are doing some things. And versus the White Sox, you would expect that they're going to play pretty well, and they had a good series. How was Dom, knowing that the White Sox were in town? He's a big fan of them, and the Detroit Tigers handle their business.
We didn't talk. I stayed upstairs. He stayed downstairs.
He's upset.
We didn't really watch the games together, though. I don't think it worked out where we really watched more than a couple of innings of that series this past weekend together. So that probably helped ourselves out and, got us removed from, having a conflict or a fisticuffs. So we didn't have anything like that. So we were graceful with each other, and we took the ball games in, and we did all right. And the White Sox did not do all right or look all right, and they are bad, man. I mean, I thought the Tigers were bad, but you look at the White Sox and the Royals, in the American League Central Division. You look at the rest of the AL Central, too. The Indians aren't taken off yet either. The Twins haven't. It's the weakest division in all of Major League Baseball, and that's why the Tigers have kind of hovered around 500 thus far. But you would think, now we have the draft coming up, the amateur draft. That's the biggest thing really to talk about regarding the Tigers. It's their World Series this season, so we could care less or should care less about them hovering around 500. But really, they have, Doc, and have been in fighter's distance from first place, to, well, be in contention right now for first place, largely because of the fact that the division that they play in, the American League Central Division, is so darn weak. And you would have to believe that the Indians will rise, will take off and have a nice hot stretch, a nice winning streak of significant magnitude and kind of separate themselves from the rest of the division. And when they do that, you'll see the Tigers fall way back, I think. The White Sox and the Royals fall even further back as well. And really quick, reverting our attention back to that White Sox series, Blaine Hardy win against the Chi Sox. I think that's why he did so well. So let's not, get carried away with Blaine Hardy now being a future member of the Tigers starting pitcher rotation, at least for the rest of this season. I don't think he will be because he's really not that good. He's a long reliever, maybe a spot starter, and really, that's really what he is. He's a guy that is a spot starter. So when you, I think, showcase him so many straight starts to so many different teams, I think when you do that and overexpose him, in so many words, well, then his production goes down and goes downhill mightily. So I think you could expect that out of Blaine Hardy moving forward. That his production that he has showcased recently over, the last two starts, since he became a member of the Tigers starting rotation for the time being at least, I think all that production goes downhill and starting very soon.
So what you're saying is, look, for a spot star versus the White Sox, a team that's won 16 games all year, 16-35, it's okay. You can kind of do some things, but you would expect that as the season would progress, that maybe somebody that doesn't feature a mid-90s fastball probably is going to struggle because of the fact that film will get around. People will be able to kind of wait it out and make him pitch, that 90-mile-an-hour fastball. And most hitters at some point in time, when you're on a good team, are going to cause some damage. Like, I don't want to see Blaine Hardy versus the Red Sox. I don't want to see Blaine Hardy versus the Yankees because that could be a bloodbath. But versus the White Sox in a spot start, give him credit. He was able to handle his business. He was able to go deep and help that bullpen out. And that's all you could ask for in a situational spot start is that, hey, help the team win. And so right now the Detroit Tigers, Vito, the week that was pretty decent. I mean, 24 wins, 29 losses. Right now, they're sitting firmly in second place. They're 3.5 back of the Indians, who are only 27-25. And so right now the Tigers are in the midst of a homestand, so you'd expect that, hey, if you can maybe split with the Angels and handle your business versus the teams coming in, then if you take advantage of this homestand, maybe possibly with a returning Miguel Cabrera, then we might be sitting here next week or in 2 weeks from now, maybe talking about the team getting closer to first place.
The team's taking off. Watch out now, Doc. They're going to be in first place, catapulting the Indians soon enough with Cabby coming back. Let's all get excited now. Not so fast, my friend, as Lee Corso would say, right, on College Game Day, because these Tigers just aren't that good enough. At least, even if they win into first place, I'll say this. Maybe they end up in first place at some point. I still don't think that's going to even happen. But if it did, guess what? It's not sustainable because they're not good enough to sustain that kind of success to stay in first place for the duration of this season. So that's not going to be the case. They might not even stay in second place because truly, we've talked about it before, but the Twinkies, the Minnesota Twins, Ron Gardenhire's former club, is a better team than the Tigers, and by far, realistically, on paper, position by position. So the Twins, you would expect to surpass the Tigers at some point as well. And really, still, it's not extremely early, but it's still relatively early on in the season, so there's still a lot of games to play. And the Tigers, these teams that aren't as good traditionally tail off in the end. They traditionally end up playing as we expect them to play, meaning they probably will become even more of a sub-500 team as the season does progress. And the Twins probably will catapult the Tigers into second place and end up a team above 500. Maybe not as many games above 500 as we expected going into the 2018 campaign, but I still think you have to believe that the Twins, because of their talent, pure talent, and you compare their pure talent to the Tigers' lack of pure talent, position by position, it means to me that the Twins will catapult the Tigers at least eventually, and the Indians should maintain grasp of that first place position in the American League Central for the majority, and I'm going to say actually for the remainder of this season.
Yeah, Liriano didn't have the best of starts. He had 8 strikeouts. It was nice. It was impressive, but he gave up some home runs. His stuff wasn't as electric as it had been in recent memory, but it's okay. As long as you win series at home versus the White Sox and you handle your business versus better competition, then all is good. But I want to ask you, what do you think the ceiling can be for Matt Boyd? Do you feel like he can be a reliable starter that every fifth day you can count on to get outs and handle his business? Or do you say, you know what, let's see how he progresses in his next 2 or 3 starts, because he has been very effective in his last few starts? Do you think he then moves up into trade bait, or do you want to keep him? What would you say is the best way to utilize and review Matt Boyd, the starting pitcher?
Well, I think he's so cheap right now under club control still for a little bit here. I think with that being said, you want to keep him for the remainder of his, time being cheap and under club control. I don't think you're really going to look to trade him now. Could he be tradable? Yes, because I think it's feasible to mention that everybody on this current Tigers roster is tradable. Nobody is untradeable, even Michael Fulmer, even Miguel Cabrera, if they got the right trade partner that would be willing to take on the massive salary of Miguel Cabrera that he's set to make until 2023. But Boyd, I think, is a future arm that will be a top arm in this Tigers rotation for the next 3 to 4 to 5 years. And I think if they really want to get competitive and relevant one day in the next 3 to 4 years, you want Matthew Boyd a part of your rotation. And maybe he's not the future number 2 or ace of your rotation. Obviously, with me saying that earlier on in this week's edition of Tigers Talk, it was a bit or really an extreme amount of hyperbole on my part. So I don't expect him to really be the ace and to carry this rotation start in, start out the remainder of the season, or for his career with the Tigers or major league career. It maybe ends up being, with the Tigers the rest of his career. I don't think he's that good of a pitcher where he can sustain that kind of high-level success every 5th day, but I think you can still expect him to give you a fighter's chance to win every game and when he starts, and that's really what you can expect and what you should expect out of Matthew Boyd, and really what you should be expecting as well out of every single starting arm in your rotation.
Okay, so you've been impressed. It was an impressive start because the Angels, my God, I was sitting watching with my nephew, and he was just like, yeah, look at that lineup. You got to get through. You have to get through Ian Kinsler, Justin Upton, Mike Trout, Pujols, and you go, wow, that's just a formidable lineup. But they're still kind of, 3 or 4 games above 500, so they're not taking off as well. And so what you saw the Detroit Tigers being able to do was, hey, you know what? Boyd was able to get outs, and then McCann, that first game, was just able to come in and handle his business. It was nice to see McCann destroy a 92-mile-an-hour fastball, but I am impressed by Boyd and his willingness to kind of explore the strike zone, go in and out, and he's been kind of an individual that has kind of taken maybe not the next step to the next level, but has started to reach his potential. And that's a good thing because that was an individual that was brought in via trade, and he was able to do some things. And now we're waiting to see what Daniel Norris can do if he ever comes back this year from injury. But it's unfortunate because imagine if Boyd and Norris were able to kind of do this together. Now you got a combination of 2 solid left-handed pitchers that can throw the ball and get guys out. But in the end, it was nice to see basically Boyd come back from some inconsistency. And when he had that outing where he was injured and had to leave a little bit early, we were all a little bit concerned, but he came back and he handled his business. You got to give him credit. That Angels lineup could do some damage, and he limited it. It was pretty good. And what the Tigers got to keep doing is what we saw in that first game can lead to success, which is spread out that offense throughout an entire 9-inning game. What we've seen when they've struggled is they start off with a couple runs and then they tail off and allow the opponent to come back in if the bullpen doesn't do the best job. But what they were able to do versus the Angels was they were able to spread out their runs, and then when the Tigers score runs, sometimes the starting pitcher or the bullpen kind of comes back and gives up a few runs and puts pressure again on that offense. And what the Tigers were able to do was, they had a big lead. The Angels came back and scored a couple runs, but then the following half inning, the Tigers then were able to go out there and keep the pressure on, and they won handily in that first contest. And that's what I want to continue to see. Go out there and have confidence at home. Unfortunately, it's Memorial Day. The crowd wasn't vast. It wasn't a huge crowd, but I think those that went were entertained by what they saw. And again, Ron Gardenhire's teams play hard, they play well, they play in control, and it's nice to see them kind of do some things.
And I think right now they enjoy playing for Ron Gardenhire. He has a respect to the clubhouse as a whole. And you would have to believe that because the Tigers have still overachieved up to this point in the season, that he deserves some American League Manager of the Year votes. Don't you think at this point he would garner some American League Manager of the Year votes? I think he would, Doc, at this point, because the Tigers have exceeded expectations up to this point in the season. Now, once again, they could be in line for a tailspin at some point where they just, go way downhill and end up losing a bunch of games in a row, 8 to 10 games in a row, because they have that kind of a ball club this year that is susceptible to such a losing streak. So that could happen. That could happen for the Tigers this season still, and I expect some kind of a losing streak to develop for the Tigers at some point of that magnitude. But if it doesn't, let's say, I think he definitely deserves some American League Manager of the Year votes.
Now, after the break, I want to talk to you about two things. A lot of people are blowing up our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, asking about Casey Mize, the number one MLB prospect. People are going back and forth going, should we draft him? Is that the opportunity for us to get a guy that can really help us out? And then I want to talk to you about the disastrous start from Jordan Zimmermann, because I saw your Twitter feed. You've been messaging and kind of noting that one said pitcher who was formerly a Detroit Tiger, has more strikeouts already this year than Jordan Zimmermann had his entire 2017 year. And we'll talk about that in that, you know what, we really, if you think about it, if we maybe had doubled down and kept the right guy, maybe if you kept Max Scherzer, you might have been able to maybe even smooth out a rebuild with a massive trade with what he could have been able to do. But in the end, you didn't make that investment, and it could be one mistake that could have been made for the ages. But we'll talk about that after this quick timeout.
You can look at what Max Scherzer has been doing and the Detroit Sports Commission and all the great events they have been bringing into our very region, the Metro Detroit area. Tons of marquee events for many years now, and specifically since 2001. The Detroit Sports Commission has been bringing in all these marquee national and international amateur sporting events, such as the great Zenith Prep Kickoff Classic, the premier season-opening high school football event in Michigan, organized by the Detroit Sports Commission at Wayne State University. It is taking place this summer, as it still would be this summer, late in the summer, from August 23rd through 25th. And you can check out all of the great events that the Detroit Sports Commission is putting on in our very region, once again, the great Metro Detroit area, by following the DSC on Twitter and on Instagram at DET Sports, and also by checking out their fine website at DetroitSports.org. Back here on Tigers Talk, I am Vito Chirco, and that is the Doc from Doc and Jock. He is along for the ride, as usual, here on Tigers Talk. And before the break, you had said, going into talking about Casey Mize, however you say his last name, from Auburn, this great pitcher, and, will he be the number one pick? Chosen by the Tigers, that means at the top of the amateur draft this summer, and many people expect that to be the case. And then you brought up, as well before that, a great arm that's currently in the mix, in Max Scherzer, a guy that the Tigers could still have potentially, but they decided not to pay him as much as he wanted. And he's not the only guy, though, that's a former Tiger that's succeeding extremely right now either. It's also Justin Verlander. It's also J.D. Martinez. I think J.D. has like 17 home runs already. Justin Verlander has a better ERA right now through 12 starts with the Astros this season than he had during his MVP campaign in 2011. I mean, look at this stat. In 12 starts during 2011, the MVP season for himself with the Tigers, JV had an ERA of 3.12. His ERA thus far in 12 starts with the Astros this season is $1.11. Crazy good, even better than that MVP campaign he had for himself with the Tigers in 2011. So he's improved. And Scherzer has vastly improved, you could say. J.D. Martinez is hitting at a torrid rate. And now the Tigers have to get that number one overall selection in this year's amateur draft right. And will it be this big arm starting pitcher for the Tigers of the future or another major league ball club? Will it be Casey Mize? What do you think, Doc, and what do you have to say about that right now?
He's been the talk of Major League Baseball, right? I think by all accounts, everybody's mentioning his name. It's kind of unfortunate that I think I read somewhere that you can't really trade your picks.
No, you can't trade these picks. So that's the thing, and people have talked about why not opening it up to what the NBA draft does, the NFL does with its draft, where you trade picks, and guess what? If you trade picks, you're probably going to get even better talent, right?
Exactly, and so when I read that, I'm like, okay, so the Tigers are locked in. I do think that there's better than a 60% chance they do take Casey Mize, the Auburn pitcher. I feel like he's a solid pick. I think he could do some things rather quickly, and then you look at it and you go, you know what? You could potentially, with Bo Burrows, Matt Manning, Faedo, Casey Mize, then you could maybe round that starting rotation out with a Michael Fulmer, should you choose to, and then you could potentially move on from everybody else. You could maybe get something for Boyd, another pick, things like that. And so if you stockpile number one talent in terms of pitchers, I could see the Detroit Tigers having some great success. I feel like Casey Mize is a guy that kind of fits the bill and could be worthy of a number one pick. What have you viewed about him, and what have you read about Casey Mize?
I feel like Al Avila's been good with, developing talent or getting talent to develop and finding talent, diamonds in the rough. So I think he's been good at finding it, pinpointing it. Now, at the top of the draft, maybe the Tigers haven't done as well of a job since he's been the leader of the front office and just been in the front office in general. And that kind of concerns me with the number one overall selection, because really, what have the Tigers done at the top of the draft in recent memory in the last decade plus? Outside of picking Justin Verlander, really, they haven't hit on many first-rounders. Now, Nicholas Castellanos has turned out to be something of high caliber. Rick Porcello, but really, after he left the Tigers, joined the Red Sox, won a Cy Young. So, can we trust the Tigers' front office brass, Al Avila specifically, in his scouting department to pick out the right guy at the top of the draft? And is it Casey Mize? Well, I'm in love with the big, sexy arm. So, if he can throw and get the job done every fifth day in the Tigers' rotation, draft him. I don't care if we already have a surplus of arms and need position talent more than starting pitching or bullpen talent, pitching talent in general. And I think that's the case. The Tigers do need to develop more position talent and to find positional prospects that they can develop and that can grow from within the Tigers farm system and come up from the farm system and become major league contributors and consistently productive major league contributors at multiple positions on the baseball diamond. But I still love the arms. I still love pitchers when it comes to picking at the top of the draft. And when you have a guy that is almost, a can't-miss prospect, I say go ahead and take him, Doc.
Okay, so with the number one pick, you feel like the Detroit Tigers are more than likely going to take Casey Mize?
And that's what we're on the street. I mean, that's all the rumors, all the attention on Twitter is gravitating towards the Tigers selecting him at number one. And you know what? It's not only about what they do there, but about the rest of the draft as well. Almost more pertinent is what the Tigers do after taking Mize. What will they do? Will they pick positional talent then? Because then they might direct their needs to positional talent as the draft does progress into the second round, third, fourth, and later rounds. And that's what I think the Tigers' plan should be. And I could see them executing that plan as well in this year's amateur draft, Doc.
So are your seats good for the game you're going to go to? Are you going to have a good time with it? I know you're going to probably throw some back, have some cocktails and things like that. What is your intention of going for this contest that you're going to see? Tigers-Angels, Game 2 in the series. I
want to hit a few home runs while I'm sitting there, so have that kind of a fan experience. And you know what? I'll be drinking a little bit, not too much, because I have to drive home, and I will because tomorrow's at Wednesday, the day in which this podcast comes out. But it will be me and 3 other buddies, and these guys have been friends with me and have gone to school with me for the majority of them since high school, and then 2 of them also went to school with me at Detroit Mercy, so it should be fun. But to answer your question, I believe your question was about, do I know where I'm sitting at in Comerica for this game? Don't know where the heck I'm sitting. Really don't care, because you know what? I'm just about taking the ball game in, and honestly, I don't got a lot of cash to spend or money in general, so guess what? I'm not going to be lavishly throwing around my money this evening, and I don't think I should be. I think the financially savvy move on the part of Vito Chirco should be to conserve his money.
Are you guys walking up?
No, we have tickets. I don't know. I haven't seen the tickets yet. Gotcha. I don't have them in my possession. I mean, I could go to this friend's house and they could have no ticket for me. They could screw me over like that because I haven't seen the ticket yet. So it could be all a lie. By the way, Doc, and everybody else out there, that's not going to happen. I trust my friends a little bit more than that. And Nick Schmiegel, he's kind of directing everything. He likes to play the lead detective or the leader, be the leader of the bunch, and he likes taking that role. So I trust him, and it's all in his arms tonight what happens, and whatever bad that happens, anything bad that does, well, blame it on him because he's the leader of the bunch once again. And I guess he would be considered the dumbass if any dumbass moves happen. It's because of Nick Schmiegel, not because of me, because once again, I'm just a follower. I'm just following the leader tonight, Doc.
Well, the weather's nice. The attendance probably will be decent, maybe in the lower bowl, but I think you guys have an opportunity, hopefully, to move around.
We'll probably be going to New Amsterdam, the bar, buddy.
Oh, okay.
I'll be going up there because if they want to throw some back, and I will with them, that's where you hang out, right? That's the place to be right now for anybody 25 and below. Now, for you 50 and above, you might want to just sit in your seats and not move around because you really can't anymore.
See,
but for us young ones,
I want you to use your phone and try to get an interview with Shohei Ohtani.
Oh yeah, right.
Try to go out there.
Shohei,
exactly.
Shohei.
Get your phone.
You probably won't even know who I'm, who's talking to him or what I'm saying. But anyways,
you young cats don't get there early. You guys,
we don't get there early enough. I mean, look at this. I'm recording my podcast. We have another one, Two Bad Hombres, this week to record here on this very day, and then I have to go drive all the way to my buddy's house on 8 Mile, which is close to Comerica. But then we have to go from his house to Comerica, and that'll be what time by then? 6 something. So we'll get there right in time for the first pitch or after the first pitch is actually thrown.
Exactly. Okay. Well, one person you're not going to see is Jordan Zimmermann. Did you see the stat line that he put up there in a rehab start at Toledo? It wasn't that good. I don't think he made it out of the first inning. I think that he gave up a lot of runs. His appearance was not good, but his quotes afterward were really a little bit unusual in that he said, well, they really didn't hit my stuff hard, and I feel good and stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel good too, buddy. We can all say that, but he really mean it. I mean, you can say it to try to paint a more positive picture than really was seen and what he exemplified and showcased to the masses in Toledo. But guess what? When we see those stats, nobody's drinking the Kool-Aid. Nobody's believing that really he felt good with what he was throwing.
Yeah, it wasn't that good. And so obviously you have taken notice and have kind of talked about the fact that Max Scherzer has been dominant and just an individual out there with the Nationals that just has really been, if you look at his contract, been underpaid.
Yeah, really, which is something, because you look at that guy like, can I take $1 million of your contract? And he's still underpaid, considered underpaid because of his WAR.
Exactly. An individual that has been dominant with the Nationals, and he just keeps getting better. It's unbelievable what he's been able to do. And unfortunately, it's just starting to feel like Jordan Zimmerman's not going to make it here in Detroit. It's just he's not going to be able to regain that fastball. He's just going to be thrown out there. And unfortunately, I don't know how you're going to handle a guy making that much money for a couple more seasons, what you're going to do with Jordan Zimmerman. But I don't see a scenario in which he's going to come and be effective for the Detroit Tigers. And it's really unfortunate because you kind of invested a ton of money in the guy, and he has been vastly underwhelming. He's nowhere near the same guy that he was in Washington, and it's unfortunate. I just think that he's one of those pitchers that, with age, he is not going to deliver, and his stuff is hittable, and unfortunately, he has been suffering with injury after injury, and it has really derailed any momentum that he may or may not have had with the Detroit Tigers.
He had
really
a little
sucks.
bit of momentum, I think, and now he's been out with a right shoulder impingement. What the heck is an impingement? Do you know what that is, a right shoulder impingement? Just say what it, I mean, can you explain to us dummies out here what a right shoulder impingement is? Like, why do they have to describe it as that? Like, you and I, we don't get that. I know you're a doctor of some sort, a doc. I call you doc, but guess what? Like, you and I, we don't even have the chance to comprehend what that means. But anyways, as you said, Doc, about Jordan Zimmermann, Jay Zim has dealt with injury after injury, and it looked like he was progressing this season. Finally, his FIP was, 4.01, a 4 ERA. That means he should have, based on the fact that his FIP is that mark. And the FIP takes into account really all the events that a pitcher can control, such as strikeouts, wild pitches, walks, all of that stuff. So really, in the grand scheme of things, Zimmerman was pitching the best that he had been in a Tigers uniform since joining the Tigers in 2016. Before he joined the DL, and then he made this rehab start, got blown up, and his contract is a behemoth of a contract, an albatross of a contract. And it's funny because we talked about Scherzer, who's being, you could say, vastly underpaid, actually, which is just stunning to me once again. And then Zimmerman is being vastly overpaid. It's not even a conversation like kind of overpaid. Please. No, not kind of, totally overpaid. Think about it. He has been totally overpaid, Doc, and you know what? I don't think he's going to get much better. I think what we saw before this injury, it might not even carry over after he comes off the DL.
So what do we do? What do you do with a guy like Jordan Zimmermann? Do you just kind of, in a situation where you got a guy with a big contract, do you just wait until he's healthy and throw him out there? Or do you start jerking him around and putting him in the bullpen?
Jerking him around?
Yeah, I'm saying like, hey,
Yeah, you mean like,
him, hey,
adjust his role?
Adjust his role and maybe put him in situational appearances where he maybe is in there for the 5th, 6th inning. Or
it's sad though. I mean, look at how much
what?
money this guy is making. It's almost funny. I mean, I'm almost laughing here because it's funny to me.
You know what? I might have the solution.
What is it?
I think you might have to go the Tampa Bay Rays route with him and just put him in for the first inning, take him out, and then put a real starter in and let him go 1 or 2 innings and take an opportunity to just not let him go through an entire start with 6, 7 innings. You just put him in at the beginning of the game, and then you take him out. And maybe if he can get 6 outs and he can do that consistently 3 times a week.
Really?
Maybe. Why not?
Get a real starter in there?
You know what?
He's made to be a starting pitcher. You just said get a real starter in there after the first inning.
You know what?
What? He's making $24 million this year to pitch. Sign me up for that job. What do I sign up to get $24 million for you and I? Let's go try with us.
You've seen what they've done
for an inning.
You've seen what they've done in Tampa. I think.
Well, he's a reliever.
Yeah, he is a reliever, but now they're starting him in the first inning. He's done it a
Good,
couple
but he's
times.
a reliever. That's why he's doing it. Jordan Zimmerman's making a lot more money too, and he's a starting pitcher on top of that.
But if he maybe is going to pitch twice a week, maybe instead of 6 innings or 12 innings, maybe you limit him down to 3 or 4. And you just, unfortunately, you got to get some use out of him. And maybe you say to yourself, okay, let's be creative and let's put Jordan Zimmermann in for the first inning. Maybe let him go 2, and that's it. Do not let him go past the first time around the order. Maybe 6 to 9 batters max, and then you go, okay, he's a guy that we're going to start the game with, and then by the 3rd inning, then we can go with a Blaine Hardy, we can go with a Fires, a Liriano, and go that route.
So we're going to waste 2 starting pitchers in one game.
Yeah,
Tigers won't be implementing that plan.
You don't think?
Because they're
so?
not going to be loving that, wasting 2 starting pitchers in one game.
You think Jordan Zimmermann has a firm spot as a starting pitcher for the Tigers?
Well, he'll be back. He'll get his shot again to prove his worth because he was pitching well enough before the injury once again. But, I mean, honestly, now you're trying to get your most bang for your buck with Jordan Zimmermann. Is that what you're trying to figure out? How can he be valuable the most to the Tigers at this point in time? Well, honestly, you might have to just have him sit at home. Tell him to go sit at home. What do you want to do in your free time? Go do that and stay away from this ball club. Don't ever bitch again for us. I mean, I don't know. If you're trying to get, once again, the most bang for your buck with Jordan Zimmermann the rest of his time in a Tigers uniform. Well, by the way, he has 2 more seasons in a Tigers uniform, and he's been pitching so well, so effectively, right? Not really, but, sarcastically here I'm saying that because he's going to be paid now $25 million. Goes up $1 million. From $24 million in 2018 to $25 million in 2019 and 2020. So 2 more years of $25 million a year from Jordan Zimmermann for lackluster productivity and results out of him on a consistent basis. No, Howard. No to everybody that's pondering whether or not he can be effective, and you can get anything worth that $25 million. I mean, you're not going to. And then if you only throw him for an inning 2 or 3 times a week, you're paying that guy $24 to $25 million to do that, and ending a game 3 times a week, let's say 2 times a week, and then you waste another starting pitcher in that same game that he's throwing an inning in to start off the game. God.
Yeah.
That's a pitiful plan, and he's been pitiful. I mean, he's been disruptive to this Tigers team because really he has set back this rotation, has set back this team, on the field, but also financially. Look at how much, once again, they have to pitch over to him, fork over to him. It's way too much money. You know what? They really can't get from underneath this contract. They got to deal with this, and they're not going to DFA him. I mean, because you have to pay all that money, and guess what? Chris Illich is cheap, and a lot of other owners would be cheap in this circumstance, too. They would not be paying this high price of a guy to go sit home. So as much as I want to go see him sit home and just go do whatever he wants in his free time right now and stay away from the Tigers ball club, guess what? It's not going to happen because you would have to eat out all of that contract, and Chris Illich doesn't want to do that, and no owner in Major League Baseball right now would want to eat all that money that Jay Zim is owed until 2020.
Okay, last topic. I'm seeing in the Free Press, the site where you write great articles every week, 5 numbers that we all should know. Definitely check out Vito's work there. Freep.com. Follow Vito at Vito Jerome. Reading an article, and it says that Major League Baseball attendance is headed to its lowest average in 15 years. Now, there's a lot of combinations. There's a lot of reasons why that this is happening. In that, 1, there's been so many cancellations. 2, the number of strikeouts has exceeded the number of hits for the first time in a couple months, and it happened in April. It's likely to happen again, where teams are striking out more than they're hitting the baseball, which is really outlandish and outrageous to think about. And people are wondering, okay, what is going on with the dip in attendance? It's down 6%. The average attendance right now is about 27,200, and that's down from 28,900 from last year. And people are going, okay, what else is contributing to the decrease in attendance? The other reason is there are several clubs that are destined to lose 100 games. And so you look at Major League Baseball, there is concern regarding the state of the game, and several teams have seen a drastic drop in attendance, largely due to the weather, competitive imbalance, the way the game is played. And are you concerned significantly regarding this news, or do you say to yourself, look, by the time June, July, August rolls around and the weather's better and you get a chance to see what your teams are about, and as the hitters catch up to the pitchers, do you think this problem is going to be resolved, or is Major League Baseball in a crisis right now?
If you're not good, you're not going to draw fans right now. And I think that's really the current state of professional sports at large. Across all major professional sports leagues, you're going to see dips in attendance at these ballparks and stadiums and arenas of teams that are Cinco, that are losing all these games, and major league teams in Major League Baseball that are bound to lose 100-plus games in a single season. Guess what? Nobody's going to be showing up for these games. They'd rather sit on their couch, be lazy, and drink beer, or hang out with buddies at a bar, at a restaurant, and go and be with their wife and kids and family members and friends than go to a ballpark where you know the team is more than likely going to lose when you go and watch them play at their ballpark. Who wants to spend all that money because it's all high-priced items, the ticket's high-priced, not that it's as high-priced as it used to be for the Tigers for their sake and other ball clubs that have realized that, guess what, we need people that are going to sit in these seats. They're going to buy our tickets on a consistent game-to-game basis. So unless we adjust our, just ways, well, guess what? People aren't going to show up to these games on a consistent basis. So teams like the Tigers have adjusted, I think, in an efficient manner. But still, on a large scale, from team to team, when you're losing almost 100 games now in a single season, or more than that, and maybe even for multiple seasons, people are not going to pack the ballpark like they used to when you were a winning ball club. When you're competitive, when you're relevant, you can sustain some kind of large attendance numbers on a consistent game-to-game basis. When you're not going to draw many fans on a consistent game-to-game basis. And that's how you slice it, and I don't think there's any way around that being, well, my point, and I think the point that everybody should be gravitating towards, that if you're bad, you're not going to draw. If you're good, you're going to draw more and do better at doing that on a consistent game-to-game basis.
And so this will be the first game that you've checked out, the Tigers and the Angels. And I know you bought a package where you get to get some free giveaways for the Hall of Fame stuff for Jack Morris and Alan Trammell, right?
I do. I have 2 games in August. The first game is for Jack Morris, August 12th. Alan Trammell, August 26th. So 2 of those games, 2 other games. This is not the first game, by the way, of that 4-game ticket package. This is separate with my buddy Nick. It's a free ticket. Hope it's free. I'll find out, I guess, when I go see him. Better be free. I don't have any cash really on me. I have a little bit. Anyway, that's beside the point. As you see some guys that we had talked about really quick, a little quick miniature version of Vito's notebook here. You see some guys that really aren't making many dollars, but, well, millions of dollars, but not as much as other guys in Major League Baseball, such as Leonis Martin, who looked like bargains at one point. Well, guess what? Going into Monday's contest against the Halos, this guy was batting .091 in 35 plate appearances. This guy went 0 for 20 in his first 5 games after returning from his DL stint. He might be a week or 2 or 3 weeks or a month away from being DFA'd at this point if he keeps hitting like that. So, subpar at the plate. He is a candidate to be, maybe I'm a little, being a little bit drastic here and using some hyperbole. I am a little bit. But this guy, if he continues hitting like that, below 100, below 200, let's say, even that, he doesn't really deserve to have a spot on this year's Tigers team. I don't care how bad the Tigers are, Doc. So there's a guy that I think should be brought up, and unfortunately, it's because of a negative thing that he has endured throughout the plate in recent memory. And now, it's more than just a couple of games where, once again, he hasn't hit that well.
Definitely, there are some players we'll peek into regarding what they have been doing on the field in terms of their inconsistency on offense, and that definitely has to be straightened out, and Leonis Martin is going to be given opportunities to do the job and things like that, and so, yeah, I think he'll be given a little bit more of an opportunity. If you ask me, how long is the leash for him? I think at least until maybe the middle of June, or at least maybe until the end of July. But Vito, before we get out of here, let's look at this upcoming schedule. You're going to finish out the series this week. You're going to play the Angels. You're going to play them 4 times. Then you're going to play the Blue Jays 3 times. First, second, third of the month. You play a doubleheader versus the Yankees Monday, June 4th. Then you play 3 on the road versus the Red Sox, back home versus the Indians, and then a series again at home in the middle of June versus the Twins. So you might not get a cupcake until the 15th of June at the White Sox. So this is a critical stretch. You're going to play a lot of games at home, but you're going to play the likes of the Blue Jays, Yankees, Red Sox, Indians, and then the Twins. So if you have an opportunity, if you want to make that push, if you can get some
push
momentum,
for what?
Get into first place. If you can play well
Good
versus
luck
the
to
Indians,
you with that one.
I think they can play well versus the Indians and
To
Twins.
get into first place, though? Enough?
So.
Well enough to get into first place.
So I'll ask you.
Okay.
Big Vito's over-under. 50% by June 15th. Are the Tigers anywhere near first place, and will they have met first place at all for one day in that time frame?
They'll be closer to third place. They will be in third place, not first place. Far removed from first place. Further, at least, than they are right now from first, and they'll be in third place. That is my bold prediction going into June 15th with the Tigers. I think by that date, you said June 15th, I think they will actually be in third place. And look at this trio of starting pitchers going for the Tigers the next 3 games. Mike Fiers, Francisco Liriano, and then Blaine Hardy. Good luck to you. When you're playing the Halos and then the Blue Jays can match, by the way, too. Blaine Hardy going against the Jays in Game 1 on Friday night. And that last game of this series against the Halos, Thursday afternoon, Francisco Liriano is going really quick. A little Vito's notebook note here about Liriano. He has allowed 5 earned runs in 2 of his last 3 starts now, including on Saturday against the White Sox. His earned run average in his last 3 outings has been 5.19. His ERA in his 7 starts prior to that was 3.35. The 34-year-old lefty now has recorded a 4.96 fielding independent pitching mark, which now closely resembles his FIP from the last 2 seasons when it was very lackluster and above 4. 4.64 in 2017 and 4.89 in 2016. And because FIP is a better indicator of a pitcher's level of success start to start than earned run average, you can really say right now that Liriano is probably going to finish the season with an ERA north of 4, and you could even say north of 4.5. And that eliminates, I would say, almost all of his trade value. Think about it. We've talked about him as a trade candidate. Well, if he's going to pitch like that, be that lackluster in his productivity from start to start moving forward, and he's 34 now. And that's years old, not years young. Well, I don't think he has much of trade value moving forward.
All right, Vito, great podcast. Always enjoy talking baseball. I can't wait to recap your experience going down to Comerica Park, watching the Tigers versus the Angels next week. You can follow Vito on Twitter at Vito Jerome. You can also check out his work at the Free Press at freep.com, and always the great work here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. For Vito, this has been John McAroon. I've enjoyed the baseball conversation. Let's go Tigers, man. Let's keep this consistent play going. Let's try to, continue to push towards 500 and maybe even get above 500. I'm going to disagree with you. I think that the Tigers might be even sniffing a day or two in first place in the next 30 days.
Sniffing a lot of third place, in my opinion. I have a drink on me. I'll be having one Tuesday night, and if the Tigers start losing really big time, we'll have a few more than just one drink, too. Okay, I have a few drinks on me. Adios.